Hello and welcome to the Diamond Report for Saturday, June 3rd, 2017. This is your host, Doug Diamond. Somehow I've managed to record at exactly 11:59 2 nights in a row. I'm not sure how that happened. Well, I can tell you tonight, the reason why it's so late is I was at the Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final between the Nashville Predators and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I'm proud to say the Nashville Predators pulled it out. That they won 5-1, which was a big victory for Nashville, for the city of Nashville, and for the Preds fans in general. I know a lot of people who are into the whole awareness thing tend to put down major sports, and I'm one of them, especially certain sports. I think hockey has a lot of pluses, a lot of good things about it. Can it be controlled? Can it be manipulated? Yes, of course it can. Any of these major sporting events like this are considered entertainment, and with a flip of the coin or a referee who gets paid just enough money, you know, decisions can be made one way or the other as to who wins, and I understand that. But at the same time, if you've ever been to a hockey game, you'll understand the energy that there is in that building. It's 17,000 people in a quantum entanglement. That's the best way I know to describe it. It's really an amazing experience, and it was good to be a small part of that. One thing that I do for a living is I actually work with music licensing and music supervision for some professional sports, such as NHL and NBA and some others. I don't work directly with those organizations, but I work through a couple of other companies who search for music that goes into licensing clearinghouses, for lack of a better term, and those clearinghouse alliances work with the NBA and the NHL and NASCAR and Fox Sports and places like that. And it's neat to be able to find some music that works really well for certain sporting events. Obviously, the vast majority of music that comes in that I listen to, 90+% of it just doesn't work for various reasons. Some of it, honestly, is not that great. Some of it is really good, but doesn't fit a particular sport. So it just depends on what we're looking for and what the different event is. But if you happen to be a music producer or a musician or in a band or whatever, and if you're interested in that type of thing, feel free to contact me. You can reach me through my website, diamonddiscaudio.com, and you can also reach me through either the songhunters.com, which is another company that I'm a co-owner in, as well as another company called Music Ops, and it's OPPS, short for opportunities. So you can reach me through diamonddiscaudio.com, thesonghunters.com, or musicops.com. Any of those companies. Diamond Disc Audio is my company, and then I'm a co-owner in the Song Hunters with two other guys that are based out of New York. And then I'm also working with Music Ops, which is a really great company that has offices all over the world. We have offices in LA and in Las Vegas and in Nashville and in Paris. So anyways, I'm very heavily involved in music licensing and music supervision. I do work with quite a few different people who direct independent films and television production and stuff like that. So it's a fun gig. I do that when I'm not doing the Diamond Report. I mean, that's kind of my main gig, is doing music related stuff. I'm a mastering engineer and a music supervisor professionally. That's what I do, and I really enjoy it. So I didn't mean to get off on that tangent actually, but most people don't really understand what I do, or if they maybe have heard, then they assume wrongly. That does happen a lot. People assume that I do something else. I was in a band growing up, and I am a musician, but I'm not a musician professionally. I'm an engineer and technical person. And then I got into music supervision a few years ago as well, which, if you don't know, is finding really great music for certain visual media like films and TV and video games and movie trailers and web commercials and just different things like that. So, and now sporting events. That's kind of a new thing for me. Anyway, I'm sorry if I am boring you, but I just wanted to let you know kind of what I did and how that kind of connects with the whole hockey thing that I was a part of tonight. Anyway, we're looking at Earthquake 3D, the last 48 hours worth of earthquakes globally. And guess what? We've got another magnitude 6.0. This one is almost in Antarctica. Look at this. Look how far down this thing is. It's way south of New Zealand. Magnitude 6.0. There's a couple of other earthquake reporting centers, 5.9, 5.7, 5.5. But that's all upper 5, so I'm going to just round it off and call it a 6.0 because that's basically what it is. So now over the last really less than 48 hours, but we can round it off and say the last 48 hours, we've had this 6.0 south of New Zealand, almost in Antarctica, which if you've been watching the Diamond Report, you'll know we've been doing constant stories about Antarctica and Mars and aliens and cannibalism, and all these things keep coming up. And now we've got sort of our own Antarctica story here. We're reporting an earthquake that's almost in Antarctica. And then last night I mentioned this earthquake in Papua New Guinea, magnitude 6.0 there. And then we had the same day a magnitude 7.0 in the extreme western Aleutian Islands of Alaska. And as you can see, there's also another 5.0, actually 5.5, so mid-range 5 on almost on Kamchatka. Let me see. Yeah, it's basically at the southern tip of Kamchatka. This is Kamchatka, this peninsula. It's part of Russia. So the hits keep coming, as we say. So we've got quite a bit of new, larger activity, mid-range 5 and a 7 up here. And then we've got the 6, and we've got a 6 down here, and we've got another 5 over here, well, east of Fiji, just a little ways, and then another 5 here in the Philippines. So, you know, the Philippines keeps getting hammered. I keep doing reading different articles in the headlines about Duterte and how the Philippines and ISIS and I've mentioned weather warfare and earthquakes and all that stuff. The Philippines is sort of getting hammered left and right now. But as you can see, there's another magnitude 5.0 in the Philippines now. And that's just only a few hours old. We do have another magnitude 5 in China right here, 4.9, 4.8. Basically a magnitude 5. Now, coming back to that, let me turn these rings down. Last night, I mentioned this magnitude 4.5 right here in the Sea of Japan, very near North Korea. And I don't know if that is a coincidence or not, because how we have all this stuff going on right now with North Korea and Trump and Kim Jong-un and all that good stuff. So an earthquake very near North Korea is a little suspicious, but it is an area that we normally would see some sort of movement. So this 4.5 really isn't that out of the ordinary necessarily, but last night I mentioned the 4.5 right here that I have selected. It's this ring, and it's showing it way off of the globe because it's a very deep 4.5. It's at 510 kilometers. Now, based on that deep earthquake, I said last night that we'll probably see a magnitude larger than this, so a 5.5, somewhere around Nepal. And I mentioned Nepal because we had these two earthquakes on either side of it. This is Nepal right here, this rectangular looking long country right here, and I said eastern Nepal is probably where we will see movement. We haven't seen that yet, but since then, since I mentioned that last night, we do have a near 5.0 up here in China. So I think that's a little suspicious. That is not something that we would normally see movement in right there. So this 5.0 may very well be connected to this 4.5 that's deep. And I would say that that is the pressure transferring from this 4.5 westward, because we know for a fact that pressure in the Western Pacific does transfer westward from the West Pacific. So it does tend to hit Asia, and then the Middle East, and then Europe. Well, when it's up here in the Sea of Japan to the north, it tends to go across China and hit the Himalayas, in this case Nepal that I just mentioned. So what I'm saying is this near 5.0 right here in China may be a precursor to what we will see in Nepal. I'm still holding out for seeing a magnitude 5.3 or so in Nepal, in eastern Nepal, because this is the fulcrum point, the middle point between these quakes and these quakes. If you look in the middle, and this is typically where the pressure will transfer from one place to another as it goes across the Himalayas in Asia and moves on into the Middle East. So I think this right here, this 5.0, is putting us on track to still have movement right there where I mentioned in Nepal. So let's keep watching that. I hate to keep harping on that, but it does look to me to be the case. And normally we would not see this 4.9 or 5.0 in China. That's a little bit unusual. And I think it's hit because of this deep 4.5. Those deep quakes are the ones that are the trigger mechanisms for larger, shallower movement in other adjacent silent zones. A silent zone meaning where there are no earthquakes, or where it's been quieted off. Anyway, let's move on from there. We've got more 5.0 activity in South America. Another 5.0. So lots of 5.0s, boy. This one is in, looks like Chile. And let's see, what else do we have? I'm just looking at this for the first time myself. I just hit record and start talking. I literally do not look at this stuff before I start the Diamond Report. We still have quite a bit of activity in the United States, mostly 2s and 3s, but we do have a brand new 3, what is this? 3.0, and that 3.0 is in, yeah, southern Kansas or Oklahoma. So that's kind of like we had yesterday. I won't get into that again, but it does follow the progression of earthquakes along the North American Craton. I mention that almost every single day. Okay, well, that's a pretty long earthquake update, but let's go ahead and move on to the headlines. The Deep State's mad rush to create more FEMA camps. It's from Dave Hodges of the Common Sense Show. Man, I just talked about FEMA camp malls a couple days ago. I don't know if you saw that Diamond Report or not, but just get in your car, drive around town, and look at the new construction, whether it's a mall or maybe a different store, like different stores like I've noticed some Walmarts, some Bass Pro Shops, and others. They have these guard tower looking things that stand up in the parking lot. Sometimes they're at different corners or in strategic locations where those locations could be fenced off or cordoned off and used for a makeshift prison if they needed to. And from the investigation and reading and watching and listening that I've done, people who are architects do not have an explanation for these guard towers, for lack of a better word. That's what they look like. A lot of them are very tall and slender and have openings at the top with the triangular roof. Go back 2 days on my Diamond Report and I show some different examples. I don't want to get into that again now, but It is really interesting, and now here's a headline from Dave Hodges about more FEMA camps. China develops ultra-fast missile defense system as U.S. hails its response to North Korea. That's on the Express. North Korea hit by fresh sanctions following provocative ballistic missile tests. Trump will not invoke executive privilege to block Comey testimony. That's on Zero Hedge. Why won't the left attack Bilderberg, the real 1% dominated by white males? That's by Kit Daniels on Prison Planet. Well, that should be self-explanatory. It's because the people at Bilderberg literally own the media, and the left will not attack itself. See, it's okay if you're a billionaire white guy who is a leftist. If you're a billionaire leftist white guy, you're on the right side, they're not going to attack you. And here's another thing I just said a day or two ago. EU plans to undermine Trump decision by bypassing the president over climate change walkout. I just mentioned this. And again, you cannot have a legitimate discussion on climate change without talking about geoengineering and the ongoing climate engineering programs. I sound like a broken record, but I'm going to keep saying it until people listen. There is no such thing as climate change without discussing geoengineering. It's plain and simple. They're hand in glove. They work together. You can't have climate change based on CO2 only. CO2 is a problem, but it's not the only problem. And having, on the opposite end of the argument, having too much CO2 everywhere is also detrimental to the Earth. Too much CO2 is a bad thing, Mike Adams. I'm talking to you and others. There are other people out there who are on our side, on the freedom movement side, on the libertarian side, who think that all the CO2 in the world would be a great thing for plants and animals. Well, I'm telling you, it's not. It can't be. It's too much of a good thing, right? So we're kind of back to that again. But there is no legitimate discussion on climate change without talking about geoengineering or climate engineering. Up to 20 dead after 3 explosions target mourners at funeral in Kabul. That's on RT. World War III fears. Japan backs the U.S. using any option to deal with North Korea nuke threat. Billionaire Koch brothers lurk behind Trump Paris deal pullout, but in-game is murky. That's on RT. In an X-22 report, Putin warns the world the global economy is about to change. You suppose that means they will do away with the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency? Been waiting for that hammer to fall. That may be what he's talking about. And another extension of what I just said, U.S. mayors across the country will defy Trump and carry on meeting the terms of the Paris Climate Accord as Bloomberg pledges to give the UN $15 million to cover the cost of the president's withdrawal. Isn't that nice? Kathy Griffin loses the remainder of her tour gigs in wake of Trump's severed head scandal after dramatic press conference. Well, I suppose it's good that some people are pulling away from her, but there will be others that will gravitate toward her and will hire her, and in general, she will get more press and more work because of this whole thing. Trump administration approves new rules requiring U.S. visa applicants to hand over social media accounts as part of, quote, rigorous vetting of potential terrorists. That can't be a good thing. We're taking matters into our own hands. De Blasio signs executive order committing New York City to the Paris Agreement. See, they're all going to go around Trump. I knew that was what was going to happen. It's like the guy isn't even president, right? ISIS sex slave survivor exposes U.S. ally for running global sex trafficking ring. Consumers in Texas, California, and Oklahoma at risk after outbreak of hepatitis A in frozen tuna prompts FDA investigation. The FDA being the Fraud and Death Administration. Penn State officials get slap on the wrist for covering up rampant child rape. That's on the Free Thought Project. And on Daily Star, North Korea will plunge us into darkness, warning Kim will cause years of blackouts. Yeah, that would be called an EMP attack. Half of Americans die broke, pension funds are gone. That's on thedailycoin.org. Trump popularity rising in Europe, according to Bilderberg 2017. Tucker Carlson says Kathy Griffin is the perfect embodiment of what the modern left believes. I think I just said that. And they're going to keep hiring her. They're going to keep paying her. And she's going to become even more prominent, at least in the leftist, Hollywood-type, radical, extremist circles. In those cocktail parties, she will be hailed and worshipped by these same people that hate Trump and want to assassinate him. Alex Jones, Kathy Griffin is the tombstone of the left. What you're not being told about the Paris Climate Agreement, that's on Natural News, my guess is it's all stuff that I've just mentioned, except they've probably flip-flopped it, and they're saying how great CO2 is for the Earth. But I would guess that this article still does not mention climate engineering. Science illiterate Arnold Schwarzenegger calls for revolution after Trump exits Paris climate fraud. That's on Natural News. Well, it was a fraud. He exited it, which I'm glad he did, because they wanted to bring us more globalism using it. That was the whole end game for the whole Paris Climate Accord thing. I'm glad we got out of it. However, it didn't really mean anything. It didn't have any teeth in it because there was no discussion of fill in the blank. Yes, geoengineering. Liberals outraged after Bill Maher says I'm a house N-I blank blank E-R. It's on Zero Hedge. They get outraged at all kinds of stuff, don't they? I mean, I understand it, but I'm not politically correct though either. But I won't say that word. I know better than that. South China Sea row at boiling point. U.S. warns Beijing over unacceptable military action. Chance of freedom as hundreds march for Scottish independence in Glasgow. That's on the Express. Gingrich says the deep state exists. That's on The Hill. Thank you, Newt, for admitting what we already all know. The deep state is the new term for the New World Order. Of course it exists. NSA, CIA, and FBI all serve subpoenas to answer Congress on unmasking of Americans. That's on Freedom Outpost. Sweden, 16 sexually assaulted girls called racist Islamophobes for complaining. That's right, you cannot complain. You have to let them rape you and beat you and torture you and turn you into a sex slave. You cannot complain about it, though, because if you do, you're Islamophobic and you're racist, even though Islam is not a race. Some people probably think I'm, quote, Islamophobic, but what I really am is murderophobic. I don't want to be murdered by these morons. This war is a lie. Real Syrian youth open up about Assad government, U.S.-backed moderate rebels. That's on Sputnik News. Macron invites all Americans disappointed with Trump to flee to France. Hey, that's a pretty good idea. That's on Zero Hedge. Why don't we just put them all in cardboard boxes and poke some holes in the side so they can breathe and ship them to France? That's a grand idea. I'm not paying the shipping, though. Supreme Court expedites Trump's petition on executive order case. Trump supporters flashed CNN is ISIS signs during CNN live coverage of pro-Trump White House rally. That's on the Gateway Pundit. I think that was a contest designed by Alex Jones and InfoWars, if I remember right. NSA won't release Bill Clinton/Loretta Lynch tarmac transcript on golf and grandkids, which is what they supposedly talked about, due to a national security risk. That means that either Bill Clinton or Loretta Lynch said some incriminating things about Hillary, and they don't want it to become public and get out there. That's on the Gateway Pundit. U.S. missile interceptor system won't stop North Korean shower of nuclear strike. That's on RT. The senator who signed the bathroom bill was arrested for child rape. That seems fitting. Breaking details about Soros's Purple Revolution designed to produce a coup and civil war. That's by Dave Hodges. And another one from Dave. Deep state FEMA camps will become decapitation centers. 30,000 stored guillotines. I'm sure if you've been around very long at all, you probably know about the guillotines stories that are supposedly they're stored in various places, and there's thousands of them. I don't know. I know Dave Hodges talked about it on and off for quite some time. And what's sure to be another shocker to you, I'm sure, Copenhagen locked down after gunman goes on rampage in tourist hotspot. Officials immediately dismiss any connection to terrorism. Well, they pretty much always do that because they don't want you to think that it's some Muslim. I would put my money on the fact that it's some Muslim that did this. Daily Express. And again, I have nothing against Muslims, not the ones who are heretical, who don't follow the teachings of Muhammad. Those people are perfectly fine. They're normal human beings who don't want to run around chopping other people's heads off. The people that want to run around and chop people's heads off are the true Islam followers of Muhammad. They're doing Islam the way Muhammad intended. Career suicide, which, by the way, I disagree with. Kathy Griffin's final remaining tour date canceled. That's good news, but I do think that she will end up getting many more gigs because of this. It will just be in different situations. Charges mulled against Geert Wilders over anti-Islam speech implying Quran incites terrorism. It's on the RT. Well, it's actually the imams that incite the terrorism. The Quran does to a certain degree. The Sirah and the Hadith are also part of the trilogy of the Islamic scriptures. They're all guilty of inciting terrorism, if you want to call it that. But it's Muhammad's teaching that actually incites terrorism. Hundreds of migrants evacuated from Old Athens airport. 62,000 migrants remain stranded throughout Greece. James Wesley Rawls says Trump thrives on chaos and energizes the battlefield. Will Trump be able to defeat leftist alliance with Islam? Why won't the left separate from globalism? Well, they're based on globalism, so they're not going to separate from that. And Islam is a means to an end for them. They can use it to tamp down on free speech and kill the people that they really disagree with, which of course are conservatives, libertarians, Christians, gun owners, and veterans. Elites push Russian collusion lie as they collude at Bilderberg. More hypocrisy by the elites. And as I stated last night, my new catchphrase is, "Isn't it sweet to be elite?" Hungarian Prime Minister says George Soros issues declaration of war on Hungary. Obama feds refuse to prosecute NASA intern caught with child porn. Intern confessed, asked why he was not being arrested. Yes, but the flat earthers will still hate him because he thinks the world's a globe, not because he was caught with child porn. What journalists should be asking about vaccines. It's time for real journalists to step forward. Well, there are some real journalists out there who have stepped forward. John Rappaport's one of my favorites. The truth is coming out about vaccines. They're a 200-year-old scam. That's what they are. $10,000 to the first person to get mainstream media is fake news on live TV. That's pretty funny. Urgent historic Trump rally at Bilderberg on Saturday. That was today. Support Trump in the face of tyrants. Trump supporters outnumber climate change advocates at White House. Diverse crowd of Trump supporters protest Bilderberg. So we have several headlines that kind of go together here. InfoWarriors face down the globalists. Bilderberg demands Trump, quote, be stopped. The truth behind Bilderberg. And then the probably the most interesting headline for the day, terrorists attack London Bridge, Alex Jones reports. Direct result of globalist ran unvetted immigration. From strangesounds.org, seismic unrest in the U.S. 11 earthquakes hit Yellowstone, 4 tremors in New Madrid, 2 rare earthquakes in Shizmaref. Steve says Alaskan earthquakes often trigger Yellowstone quakes. The issue is where they originate. Well, we talk about that all the time in the earthquake updates. They originate in the Western Pacific. That's where they usually start. They start with those deep quakes that translate into shallow, larger movement, and then then the pressure pushes clear around the Ring of Fire. And they end up in Alaska, and then they come down from Alaska and hit the west coast, and then go eastward from there across the North American Craton. In other words, what I'm saying here is it's natural progression. It's not all tectonic weapons and HARP. I mean, that might account for some things here and there, but when they pull out those big guns, I think we'll know it. Most of everything I ever talk about is normal pressure transferring from one place to another, in my opinion at least. From Zero Hedge, the insanity is the surest sign the stock market bubble is ready to pop. If everything is going to be just fine, why are so many big names in the financial community warning about an imminent meltdown? Massive fish kill on Puget Sound blamed on hot weather. Steve says, until Americans demand the truth on Fukushima and really embrace the ramifications, tens of millions lie in the nuclear cesspool, the Pacific Ocean's death. Yep, that's exactly what it is. It's not all Fukushima, though. That's a big part of it, but it's also from the ongoing geoengineering programs that have changed the trade winds, changed the winds, and changing the wind patterns, changed the ocean currents, and the oceans are heating exponentially from various geoengineering programs that are going on, and the methane releases that are coming from the sea floor, the seabed, tend to gas the fish and the other animals in the ocean, and then that's also causing a large percentage of the Pacific Ocean and all the other ocean marine life die-offs. Steve says, a very timely and important read. Preparing your children. Having the right mindset or belief system about preparedness is essential. That's on Survival Dan 101. Foreign students in the U.S. embrace ISIS by the hundreds. Man is dead and we have killed him, you and I. Even back in the late 1800s, Nietzsche had the genius to see that science was in the process of killing God, and with it, Christian morality. That's on globalgorillas.typepad.com. As young as possible, Norwegians ordered child abuse on demand from the Philippines. Busted. Politicians and police caught in huge Norwegian pedophile ring darkroom. Major Western media removed Norway pedophile ring story. Yeah, they don't want to talk about that kind of stuff. This one's on Sputnik News. The mummy's medical secrets. Their perfectly preserved mummified bodies in a crypt in Lithuania are teaching scientists about health and disease among people who lived long ago. Gingrich says the deep state exists. They are fighting to keep hold of their power. This is what the deep state does. They create a lie, spread a lie, fail to check the lie, and then deny they were behind the lie. That's on The Hill. Selling out Pentecost to Islam. The West has a concrete identity. Our identity is not Islamic, but based on Judaism, Christianity, and humanism. Our freedoms result from this identity. Kathy Griffin and Hillary Clinton are losers, not victims. That's on 21stcenturywire.com. Media blackout as U.S. senators meet in secret with global elite. Only miles from the White House as dozens of the world's top manipulators openly meet in secret at Bilderberg. Just miles from the White House, corporate media remains silent. That's on the Free Thought Project. I wonder why they met so close to Washington, D.C. this time. Usually it's in some other country. But this time it's in Virginia, which of course is very close to the White House. You suppose they're all going to march over there when they're done with their little confab and decapitate Trump? Is that what they're going to do? Students are ninjas. No income, no jobs, no assets. Steve says, and enslaved with student debt that can never be repaid. Close to trillions of dollars. What will be offered to them to avoid debtor's prison when they come to pass? That's on tapnewswire.com. And then more on the London Bridge. Breaking news. Vehicle mows down people on London Bridge. Reports of shots fired and stabbings Saturday. A vehicle mowed down people on the famed London Bridge. This is on AmericanMilitaryNews.com. Well, we know who gets in the vehicles and mows down people on bridges and streets and sidewalks, don't we? Is it the Christians? No. Is it the Jews? No. Is it the Hindus? No. Is it the space aliens? No, I don't think so. I think it's the crazy, wacko, radical Muslims who aren't really radical. They're just doing what Islam teaches when they follow the teachings of Muhammad. Running people over on the street is perfectly acceptable because you're killing kafirs, not human beings in their minds. Has America just become a rogue nation and a dire threat to the very existence of the rest of the world? President Trump triggers globalists as they deceitfully warn of coming apocalypse while neglecting this travesty ongoing for 6+ years. It's on All News Pipeline. Jihadi terrorists shouting, "This is for Allah," kill 7 in knife frenzy at 5 locations in the capital. Hunt for men with 12-inch blades who began the rampage by mowing down revelers on the London Bridge. That's on the Daily Mail. Okay, that's it for the Diamond Report today. Thanks for listening and watching and for hanging in there. I sure appreciate it, and I'll see you tomorrow.